Good morning. Well, I started thinking last night about something I've kind of wanted to do for a while. And that is, I've wanted to run a game, or like a DM a game of a Star Wars role-playing game. I think I may have talked about this game before, but I thought about it, and like the problem is I don't have any experience with anything like this. So I'm just not sure I'd be good at it, but it's another one of those things that I think I just need to try and see how it goes. But I had a lot of different ideas about like how how to do it, because I've been thinking about it for like a year or more now. It's just one of those things that even though I like the idea of it and it seems like something fun, it's hard to do, because also you need to get like a group of people who all want to do it and can find time like once a month or so to come around to do it, and then you need to have the time and the space and everything like that. And I know a few people who are into role-playing games and all, but they already have like 4 going at any one time, so it's kind of hard to say, hey, y'all want to do this one as well on top of all that? And I thought about just seeing if anyone at the local game store was interested, but it's just another one of those things that's kind of difficult to figure out exactly. But it's something that sounds fun, and then like I've had this whole idea for it because like I really like the Star Wars universe, like I've said before, and so like I had this whole idea for a kind of game set. So it was like going to be on this planet I made up, and it's a tidally locked planet, so it's always facing it always has the same side facing the sun, essentially. But I was going to give it a little bit of variance so that over the course of its year, it kind of moved around, like it kind of shifted a little, so it's ever so slightly tilted on its axis. Even though it's tidally locked, it does still experience a little bit of shifting of daylight. But it was going to be like this ring around the planet of jungle where the light was bright enough for plants, but not too hot in the direct sun. And then it was going to get just more and more of a desert as it got to the hot side. And then the cold side that was in eternal night was going to get colder and colder, and then in the middle of that one was going to be just like this giant frozen desert, essentially. And so I thought that was like a fun idea, and you could do a lot of stuff with that, kind of have a wide variety of locations if you wanted. But I was going to set it as like a group of rebels, just kind of trying to start a rebellion or trying to fight against the Empire on this one planet, because I am not great at improvising, which is another reason that I wasn't sure about, or that I'm not sure about starting this game, is because I'm not that great at, just kind of improvising like that. So I thought I'd kind of really flesh out this one planet so I could be ready for anything that happened there, and then kind of stick to it. But I was thinking, like, I have this planet and it's got these cool features, but then it's got like a few cities around, and it's and so it's like and so it was going to be just off a major hyperway, so it's kind of got a little bit of traffic, but not very much, so it's kind of smaller and out of the way. And I was thinking maybe it'd be like an idea, because you want characters to be invested in the place they're in, so you need to set up some backstory with the characters, have them all either from there or have came there for some reason, but be invested in the place. That way the characters don't have a reason to leave until the game is done, essentially. But I kind of pulling a lot of inspiration from Star Wars Rebels TV show, because it's a really good example of all this. But I was thinking it'd be set like between 5 and 15 years after the fall of the Republic. So like the Empire is well established. There's enough time that I can bring in like stormtroopers. But I was thinking maybe leaning more 5 years, because that way it'd be short enough time that I could still have Clone Wars era stuff hanging around. So like, and I was thinking, because I really like the Clone Wars as well, and I was thinking something that could be kind of like a draw for the planet, or a kind of backstory to have a lot of different stuff happening around that world, is that like just before the end of the Clone Wars there was like a major or in the desert, just the whole planet was separatists, and the separatists were setting up major droid factories on the planet, and so there could be like a main, because I also really like Geonosians. I think they're a really cool but underrated species in Star Wars. But so I was thinking maybe, because in Star Wars the Geonosians did kind of create colonies with the separatists. They brought a Geonosian colony to different planets, and so they kind of built up a large hive and then built a factory around it, stuff like that. And I was thinking maybe it's something like they brought over a bunch of Geonosians onto the desert side of the planet, where they would feel more like their home, and then like created this whole created like a big Geonosian facility with a big droid factory, and then also created some other like automated or run by other species factories on other parts of the planet. And so there'd be a lot of leftover separatist technology around from that. And then I was also thinking, like, at the end of the war, the Republic comes in and destroys all the the separatist fleet in orbit, and then and maybe it would be like a smaller fleet, and then lands and has a big war on the ground. And I was thinking maybe they could like bombard the factories, but so they're mostly destroyed, but they're still like scraps. And so essentially you would have this kind of big scrap, like it's a classic Star Wars thing where you're looking for scrap and stuff. And I was thinking then the Empire could be using all that leftover scrap from the Clone Wars and melting down a lot of it to create parts for the Death Star in like a prison manufacturing plant kind of thing. And so that would kind of establish a small Imperial presence there. And I was thinking there'd be like a Imperial prison on the cold side of the planet, so that because it's like essentially on the middle of the cold side of the planet, and like the middle of as cold as it gets there, they have like this kind of prison where they bring all the scrap and then melt it down and use it to make different parts that are needed, and like really basic things like screws and bolts and stuff like that. But it could be kind of this thread that kind of provides some reason for Imperials to be on the planet, but it's unimportant enough that there's not a big presence, so it's more manageable for a small. Anyway, I might talk more about this later, but for now I gotta go. Alrighty, I'm back. Talking about what I was talking about earlier. So yeah, I kind of had that idea for kind of why the Empire would be involved on that planet, but you know, if all they're doing is making essentially just random parts that could be used in anything, it wouldn't have to be like high security or anything, because they're just making random bits. They don't know anything. And so if something were to happen, it would be important, but not important enough to warrant like a big interaction from the Empire. But also, I was thinking like maybe instead of like having just this monolithic entity of the Empire as the kind of villain, I was thinking I'd take some inspiration from Star Wars Rebels again and have like this localized command structure where you have like because you have like the regional MOFs, but even that's like way too large scale for rebel activity unless they get like super late game. So it could be like you have on the local level like the planetary kind of, because it wouldn't be like a big military operation, but there would be comings and goings, so they would have to have some sort of force and want to make sure that there's, you know, an occupying number of troopers, and there's plenty of local enforcement so that, you know, whatever's happening isn't being disrupted or damaged in any way. And so you can have the you can have the main planetary kind of military leader, like somebody. I'd have to look again, because I know that the Star Wars kind of military rankings are not anything like real life at all. And so, you know, you have different ranks, but I think it'd be somebody like I don't know, lieutenant's probably too low, but commander is too high. So I'd have to look, but, you know, I was thinking they'd have like a sizable garrison. That way the players have some real challenge and can kind of do more small scale stuff early on, but then as they grow and get more kind of equipment and all in the future, they could, you know, challenge some heftier enemies. So have like a kind of local garrison force that has, you know, for a whole planet, I don't know how much you would need, but I have to look into it to see how much it is, because, you know, they need like, I'm thinking the planetary population would be in the millions, probably. Because, you know, I was thinking probably like 3, maybe 4 major cities. I'll have to look again, because I'm kind of drew up a map of what I was thinking, but yeah, like 4 major cities, and then another, you know, 20 or so smaller towns and cities. But in Star Wars, everything is on kind of a weird scale where it's not too large, but not too small at the same time. So like the main city would probably be, you know, like several, at least 1 million, probably more than that, but it's like a small kind of backwater at the same time. So I don't know, and you need to make it something relatable also, so you can kind of get a good sense of scale for kind of modern day Earth comparisons. Because when it's grounded like that, it makes a lot more sense. And so, yeah, have the cities, like, I was thinking there'd be like a big city that's not like a criminal city, but where the kind of more criminal underworld of the planet tends to be focused around. So somewhere a little like Vegas, like a mix of LA and Vegas, but kind of more reminiscent of Vegas in the 70s, when, you know, you have like the mob a little bit. And so so there will be a kind of criminal side of the planet where they can interact with people who are like not officials, not imperial, but are not rebels at the same time. So they have that kind of side of it where they could interact with, and then so that one would probably be like similar size to Vegas or LA, but then you'd also have like the official city that has all the political centers and the economic centers. And so that would probably be somewhere more like New York or something like that. And so that one could be pretty big, actually, without being too much. But I mean, you wouldn't have like the sprawling metropolis. It's still this tiny dot compared to like Khorasan or any of the main large cities across the empire. So it wouldn't be big enough to attract attention. It'd just be big enough to justify it being the main population center for this whole planet. And then you'd have kind of on the other side, you'd have the secondary center, which is much smaller but kind of more of an up and coming place. So maybe you have some politicians there who aren't as well known but still want to be big and important, and so they might try a little harder to root out rebel activity, but it'd be significantly smaller because they're trying to gain reputation because they don't have it. And so that one would be a smaller, like million people probably in that city. And then I was thinking you'd have like a fourth kind of city that is a ways away from the larger one. So it'd be like off of the main city, not exactly a suburb, but it would still need to be like maybe a couple 100 kilometers away, which is a long enough way you wouldn't be able to see or have any effect from the city. And so it'd be a little like the place I'm living, a good like 500,000 people or so. So it's a city, but more agriculturally focused, kind of the agricultural hub. And then there would be a bunch of smaller agricultural and scavenging settlements all over the planet. But that's all the time I have for now. Alrighty, I'm back. So what I was saying earlier about the trying to remember exactly where I was, but yeah, pretty much I need to figure out how many stormtroopers you would need, because I feel like there's a different kind of level of enforcement needed. Because I was thinking, you know, like I said, you'd have just the population of the planet, but then on top of that, I was talking about the prison complex, and you would have an additional kind of guard set for that. And so, like, it of course depends on how many prisoners there are, and I don't think they would be local prisoners. I think it would be from more prisoners from a wide range of places that are sent there. And it kind of provides some kind of economic incentive to the governor. And I was thinking the governor would be like the governor of that small sector. So the governor would actually probably be on another planet in the area. And this would just be one of the planets that governor oversaw. And so there would be the local minister that would be kind of the main political villain, who would kind of just be out for themselves, probably a bit corrupt, and involved with local crime gangs, and just trying to get all the money for themselves. And then they'd have, you know, like even more localized mayoral positions. But then on the military side of things, you'd have like the military leader who would have a rank appropriate for the number of troops, which is why I'm trying to figure out the number of troops that would be needed. Because, like, I was thinking, you know, you'd have like a few, maybe like 5,000. Is that too big for a prison? Like a major prison complex in Star Wars? I don't know. I think probably that's a pretty big one, but I think it'd probably work. And so that's like, because thinking back to like Andor, the prison on Narkina 5, that was, I think it was 7 spokes, 7 levels, 2 shifts of 50 with 49, because it was like 7 men per table, 7 tables with 1 overseer, so that's 50 per shift, 2 shifts per line, 7, so that's 100 per line, 7 lines per floor. That's 707 levels? I don't remember if there were 7 levels, but if so, that's almost 5,000. So yeah, around 5,000 prisoners then. I don't think I'd have that complicated of a prison setup, but something similar with some form of prisoner control, whether it's like electrified floors or something more mundane. I'd have to think maybe just shock collars, essentially. A little more traditional. But yeah, so what, 5,000-ish people in the prison, and then so how many guards would I need for that? Because I would have the guards be stormtroopers. Probably. Well, I don't know, because, I mean, you'd have the local police force, which is going to be like, probably not too much, maybe 1 for every 1,000 people or so. I don't know how many police there actually are normally. I feel like maybe about 1 policeman for every 1,000 people is normal. Because in smaller towns you have like 4 or 5. Well, maybe you actually have more in smaller towns, but then in cities you have less, so it kind of balances out. But around, so if I said like around 10 million population, that would be around 10,000. So 10 million. 1 for every 1,000. So move it over 3. So yeah, around 10,000 law enforcement for the entire planet, just in the cities. And then on top of that, you would have the local military garrison, which, because there's like kind of criminal underworld activity, I was thinking of having a moon of like a gas giant in the solar system, or like having a remote moon close by be a pirate haven. So without jumping too far, they could just kind of go visit that and have a little bit of a piracy adventure if they wanted, without it being too separate and without needing to like buy a hyperdrive capable ship. So they could do that. but then that would justify a larger military force because they need the naval assets and the ground assets to kind of support the whole area, because there's already going to be a base due to the there's already like a major manufacturing center there. They could have a kind of separate garrison that has a lot of power at the manufacturing prison, but also has most of their power still in place. Because I would want like ATDPs, ATSTs, no ATATs, those are for large scale combat, but I would think like they need ATDPs for kind of regional patrols. And so like have probably something like 50 to 100 armored units, or like individual armor pieces. So maybe a unit of like 4 or 5 would be like 20 units, but that is for like, it's kind of localized to that planet, but a lot of them are off on different planets. But like how much, because I'm thinking how much force would like a governor of a like 10 backwaters have? Like would that be, because I don't know, there's 25,000 Imperial Star Destroyers, a lot in fleets, but a lot in like task forces, because I feel like you'd have like one smaller task force kind of deployed to this area and stationed there. And so there would be maybe like in the entire area that they'd kind of be in the jurisdiction of, there would be kind of maybe an ISD, probably like a Victory Star Destroyer assigned, just like one kind of capital ship, and then a few more kind of large more capital ships, because capital ships are corvettes and up. So like I'm thinking a well-balanced fleet of like a Victory, and then maybe like 3 Arquitans, a dozen Gazantes, maybe more Gazantes, but a couple of Raiders, and so like a lot of more like utility ships, maybe a Quasar, I don't know. But yeah, having like enough ships to justify a large response if there is something large going on, but a small enough force that they're never going to encounter more than one ship at a time. Because like for a small rebel cell, like a Gazanti carrying 4 walkers would be like crazy amounts of firepower to overcome. But if they, so that would be a lot, but then if they just have to face like some ground transports, that wouldn't feel like the Empire is here, you know? So I want them to be able to have a little more of an oomph if I need it, but not so much that it doesn't make sense that they're fighting these small detachments. But yeah, so the law enforcement would all be, you know, local, actual like law enforcement, and so they would have essentially just pistols and occasionally some rifles for like SWAT teams or whatever. And that would probably be who they were mainly facing. But then around the Imperial installations, there would be military units. And so, like, so I'm thinking, like, because you would need, the guards would be a separate, the guards for the prison would be a separate force, I think. It would be like a division underneath the main military force, but not part of it exactly, because they wouldn't be deployed, really. They would just deal with prison issues. But for 5,000, maybe you need one guard for every 10 would be a lot of guards, but still makes sense, because that'd be 500 guards. I think that's probably a good amount. Yeah, so like 500 guards, and then probably have a detachment of like maybe like 400 guards, and then a detachment of 100 stormtroopers or something. But like maybe 500 and then 100 stormtroopers and a riot squad. I don't know. But that's all the time I have for now, so. Alright, last segment of the day. Oh. You know, the break between the first and second segments is about 3.5 hours. And then the break between the second and third is about 35 minutes. But the break between the third and the fourth is 4.5 hours. Which, for some reason, that extra hour makes a very big difference in what I remember from the prior conversation. Well, monologue, I guess. Anyway, I don't remember where exactly I was, but my idea for the planet also was, I think I was discussing numbers. Oh yeah, because I said 500 guards, 10,000 law enforcement, and then 100 stormtroopers for the prison. And then they would need another, you know, I don't know, because at that kind of point in Star Wars, the Empire is not quite fully militarized. But, and it wouldn't make sense to have a stormtrooper for every law enforcement officer. Like, you don't need that many stormtroopers, but at the same time, if it's more of a military objective, you might need them for the wider area. But yeah, for the fleet, I was thinking like they'd have a permanent kind of something like 8 to 10 kind of, well, maybe like 4 large freighters. So like, or 4 kind of combat freighters, so like Gazantes. And then like 4 smaller kind of freighters of some sort, like the ones from Rogue One, those kind of freighters. So 4 of those, and then two like larger ones, which would be I don't remember what they're called, but the large triangular ones that just haul large amounts of goods, and then those would kind of more operate in the prison area. I could have told you the type of large freighters used, but yeah, essentially they have two large freighters. Well, no, the large freighters would come and go with shipments, but they would permanently have four. Well, I guess all the shuttles would come and go too, so I guess, yeah, freighters would just kind of come and go as needed for the Empire with their own escorts if needed. But the Imperial forces would need shuttles. I'd say probably a Lambda, one or two, probably just one for the governor would have one. Maybe, I don't know if the local minister would be important enough to have one. But maybe since there's not a lot of others, yeah, one shuttle. So one Lambda, and then probably 6 to 10, maybe 10 Sentinels. But I'm just thinking, kind of planning the planetary forces now. I need to write all this down. I guess I'm recording it so I can listen back and really get it there, but because I like going through this kind of stuff and just making this fun kind of situation, even if I end up never using it. But yeah, it'd be fun because like I feel like they'd have a mid-sized blockading force. Anyway, I should really get back to the whole general idea of it. But yeah, the idea was to have this planet they could be on and go through and have the whole story kind of surround. But the main kind of conflict would come from the Empire is, just cracking down like they do, restricting personal freedoms who speak against them in any way. But like if it's kind of a nicer planet, they wouldn't really have much freedom restricted. So I'm trying to think what are some issues that could kind of cause the general disquiet of the locals, because you can't have a rebellion if the people don't support it, because if the common people aren't supportive of what the rebels are doing, they're just terrorists. But if the local population supports them, then it's a rebel group. So it's kind of a hard line to find, because the Empire is generally, like, even by that early on, they've done so many things that tons of people are going to disagree with them across the galaxy. So you could find any number of reasons an individual character won't like them, but most people don't care about far-flung places. They need something to hit home. But I was thinking it would be a former separatist world, which on its own, being losers in the war would be enough, I'm sure. But why would somebody join the separatist alliance against the Republic? And I think that would be that they had been under a severely corrupt kind of portion of the Republic, essentially. I'd say they were being something the Republic had done. I'd have to look more into it, but maybe just I can leave it very vague. And the Republic was really just screwing them on tax policy or whatever, and so they got mad and joined, and kind of were already kind of leaning separatists, and then maybe the Republic kind of cut funding, and they never thought it would come to war, but they ended up in the war anyway. Maybe they had heavy ties to the Trade Federation as well, because I want B-1s. B-1s are my favorite Star Wars droids, so I want B-1s everywhere. So yeah, they had heavy ties to the Trade Federation, and the Republic was really kind of not doing good for them economically, so they went with the separatists, and then when it actually came to war, they were like, uh-oh, but we're in it now, and went with it. And then the Republic came and just completely bombarded all of their factories that were producing droids, but probably killed a lot of the local population when they did that, because they were at work in the droid factories. And so the Republic killed people, destroyed jobs, and then put in a very corrupt ruler in the Imperial system. And everyone hates the Imperial minister, but the Empire has kind of said, you were separatists, you betrayed us, so we are not going to allow you to hold elections. You have to deal with our appointed leaders. So everyone's mad because they did away with elections. That's a very understandable, relatable thing for anybody. And then I think also, I'm going to say that there's a refugee population. I don't know where from yet, but maybe just because it was a separatist world, there's a large kind of non-human refugee population from one or more ex-separatist worlds that were terrorized by the Empire, and so they're gonna bring their own grudges. But on top of that, the Empire is gonna be trying to kind of crack down on the refugees and be very essentially racist toward them. Just thinking of modern politics, because Star Wars has always been about modern politics, and regardless of whether you like that or not, it's a big deal. But all around the world in real life right now, people are dealing with refugee crises all over, and so I think bringing something from that in could be impactful. Well, that's all the time I have for today, so see y'all tomorrow.